Coming up on Rugby Wrap-Up, talking French rugby and the Spanish Inquisition. Brought to you by our friends of the British Council. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy talking rugby in New York City at the Fantasy Sports Network Studio 34 on West 35th Street. And we have a couple of international all-stars, guests, if you will, dignitaries. Mr. Pierre Arnald.
Oui. How are you?
Oui. And Mr. Stéphane Louris.
Etienne.
Ah,
Merci.
oui, d'accord. Okay, I'm going to drop. I don't want to ruin everything for everybody and brag about my French. Depuis longtemps que je parle français, oui.
Yeah.
Mais en anglais, we're going to talk a little bit first about French rugby, but I want to introduce you to the folks at home that may not know you. Our esteemed friend, Stephen, as you likely know, played rugby at Clermont for a period of time, probably what, I got 1976 to 1988.
Exactly.
And this is before, exactement?
Yeah.
Exactement. This is before, unfortunately for you, the onset of professional rugby.
Yeah, exactly.
But I got to ask you a question. You had to get paid something. I mean, did you have a full-time day job playing for them?
No, you know, as rugby was at this time, you were involved in the game. Then after, you can work for the city hall. You can work for
allegedly show up for a job.
Yes, to open a bar,
right.
to open a sports shop.
Very nice.
This was the project, but finally I decided to move to Paris and to follow the university.
And you studied at Sorbonne, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Steve, did you study at the Sorbonne?
I did not study at Sorbonne. Of the many, internationally acclaimed universities that I studied at,
yeah,
that
I
wasn't
mean,
one of them.
you have like 75 degrees to be the ultimate perpetual student.
3 degrees, no job. You work it out.
Listen, I have no degrees and no job. No, I have a degree. University de Buffalo, where I studied Francais.
It's famous in Paris.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Second only to the Sorbonne, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, aside from that, you were at the French embassy in Vietnam as an attaché.
Yeah.
You know, I'm smelling spy here, right? This has got all the makings.
Pretty clear.
You know, a job where he's actually, oh no, he's a rugby player, but he's getting paid to do other things, right?
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Yes.
All right.
No Russian was involved.
So it was back to Paris. You stopped playing rugby after your stint as the attaché, wink, wink, in Vietnam. Then you started working for the French Rugby Union.
Yeah.
From 2003 to 2006, doing what?
I was the head of marketing department for the Rugby World Cup 2007 World Cup.
Oh, God, we could have gotten tickets. Oh, that would have been great.
And then I was the head of the Under-21 World Cup, who was...
2006?
2006 was in Clermont-Ferrand, my
Wait.
home city.
So how cool was that, being the marketing person for the Rugby World Cup 2007?
You know, we were working with RB at this time, and all the rights have been sold to IMG. So it was beginning of rugby.
Yeah.
No much sponsor was interested in World Cup. It was not the same level as today.
Right.
But this was a nice job to hire the new sponsor and to work with international brands.
And that later on became part of your resume. Well, that became your part of your resume, and you became the CEO of Stade Francais.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this was in 2011 when Thomas Savard took over the club. He asked me to join him and to manage the team because he was following the family business. He had no time to follow rugby and the team, so he asked me to be a CEO there.
That's awesome.
And I spent the last 6 years before the takeover from Dr. Wild.
Right. So there was the whole thing with Racing and Stade, right?
Yeah.
What was your opinion on that?
My opinion is, it's like Biarritz Bayonne. It's, if you look at the market, it should be merged because there is no enough space for two teams. But if you look at history and
you can't get rid of the history.
Yeah, and players family, they are scared to have a new team which are not the same color of, the pink was so strong at this time, and merge with Racing was different.
To that point, if I could interject.
Yes.
So, not just an opinion, but you were actively involved in that whole process in actually negotiating the merger. So, why do you think that it didn't happen? As we discussed, was it players? Was it fans?
Yeah. You know, the public supporter are following players, because if the star in the game is always the players. So if the players don't want the merge, then the sponsor supporters are following the players. The main problem was this project was very secret one, that nobody know about it, and from one day
Spy.
From one day it happens to the media, and everybody was shocked, because how can two famous French rugby club speak about merger without
anybody knowing about
anybody involved? So
Comment dit-on conspiracy?
This was our mistake, that to do it as a business and secret, nobody to involve, and then everybody was shocked.
And how quickly that decision was rescinded.
Yeah,
right. Okay, we're only kidding. We were just kidding. It was a joke.
So Pierre, do you think Paris can't support two professional teams?
Okay, for the supporters, it should be only one team. From the French,
for the number of supporters of rugby
number of supporter and habits, because if you see in sport in France, soccer is number one. From the last 30 years, everybody tried to have two teams in Paris. Some billionaires spend money, everybody was involved. There is only one club, it's Paris Saint-Germain, and today there is one strong team. But for rugby it will be the same. You have no space for two teams. And this is a French relation with sports, that we can follow one team. And in Paris especially, they are looking for a winning team, because Paris is a shining city.
Yes.
So they are looking for a number one team.
Yes.
If you have a number two with number 5, nobody will follow. So you should be number one. So that's why the
Ce n'est pas bon.
No. That's why we say we will merge the two teams and try to do the best.
All right, we have to take a quick break. But, Stephen, I want you to think about that. Can New York hold two professional teams? Because New York is a lot like Paris. And we'll be right back after this.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
All right, and we are back. Matt McCarthy for Rugby Wrap Up, the Studio Fantasy Sports Network in New York City, talking rugby, international rugby with Stephen Lewis and Mr. Pierre Arnald. Stephen, we left it as a cliffhanger. Can New York carry two professional teams? Because you just heard it from this gentleman that Paris can't or shouldn't.
Rugby?
Yes, we.
No way. Absolutely not.
Ever.
Not in my lifetime.
Get off my shit. Get out of the studio. You can leave and don't let the door hit you.
Not happen. Not happen. Let's just concentrate on getting one, supporting James, getting their act together, and making that a success. So I think that's the important thing, rather than two teams of pipe.
What if they wear pink?
Be my guest. Be my guest.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So you said you had a question.
Yeah. So what I want to bring up or ask you, Pierre, is there's commonly when we look at French rugby, we see the strength of the clubs. Okay, we see a lot of money in French club rugby, and we see the clubs driving decisions. How has that affected the performance of the national team? In the sense that the clubs are pulling one way, and the national team perhaps doesn't get, or the national team coach doesn't always get what he wants.
Yes. If you see the history of the league, it was settled in 1996 with Serge Blanco was involved. And Serge Blanco was strong with the French Rugby Union. So it was two people who was involved, Bernard Lapassé and Serge Blanco. And they were managing the French rugby between the club and the union. Then, now, if you see the situations, you have two different ways. The rugby league is managed by some billionaires with all the rugby fans, and the French Rugby Union managed by Bernard Laporte, who is more business-oriented and with different point of view of the club. So now they are bargaining. They are trying to do a rugby, and everybody is taking this carpet from his side. So we need to have more clear operating agreement between the French Rugby Union and the league.
Well, that leads to my question about Les Bleus, the French national team. How can you... What needs to be done to get them back in the conversation about being one of the powers in international test rugby? Because they're not now, and the French flair seems to be gone for French big bodies slamming forward, right?
Yeah.
That flair seems to be gone. And is it gone because players aren't getting enough playing time because the owners are spending tons of money on foreign players coming in to play in France?
Okay, one part of the problem came from there is less French player in the all top 14 team, so we are resolving the problem step by step.
You don't have a lot. There's less players that are French on the top 14 teams now.
Yes,
right.
Yes. Now we are trying to resolve this problem but it will take 3-4 years. That there will be less foreign players in the team, top 14 team. But also we have a problem at school. The boys are playing rugby late. You know, now when you see French national team, they don't start with rugby. They start with soccer, they start with basketball, they start with other sports. So they don't have the basics of rugby.
So it's a catch-22 because you want the kids to be playing early, but they're not playing early because they're watching these other sports, maybe because they're seeing the French team is not doing so well.
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
Yes, and the French player was start from the age of 6, 7. The youngest was looking for the all games. Now when you have new players, they start maybe at 15, 16 rugby. Some are starting, if you take the Louzet, the prop from French national team, he started 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So he don't know what's rugby roots and how was the French team playing. Right. So we need to have to attract young players and to be more professional at the young stage and at the school.
But Steve, we've got the brushback with owners of these teams in England and the Premiership as well. The owners own their players, and you're seeing players being asked to play too much rugby because they're being paid big bucks by professional franchises or teams and owners, and then they're beholden to the national team, right? I mean,
yeah. So England and France are very similar in that regard, in that the primary employer of the players are the clubs, and so there's this friction between the clubs and the league competition and the national union. In smaller countries, Scotland, Ireland, New Zealand, the national union is either owns the clubs or controls the clubs. Right. So you don't have the same conflicts. So that's the explanation for that. I have a quick question for Pierre. Historically, French rugby has been, the powerhouse has been the south and the southwest, with maybe a couple of teams in Paris. And obviously, of late, my team, Les Bagnards, are doing quite well. That's
Les Bagnards.
Stade Rochelet, La Rochelle. Is rugby considered a national sport, or is it considered regional plus Paris?
It's, the rugby will develop where you mentioned about La Rochelle. It will develop where the city have to be enough players and enough sponsor for one team. Where soccer is strong, rugby is falling. Where rugby is strong, soccer may stay as Paris, Lyon, and Marseille, let's say. The problem is in Paris there is not a long history because Stade Francais was provincial rugby players were going for studies. This was the Paris team. That was all the players. When Max Guazzini started Stade Francais, he was looking for Bordeaux players, Clermont players, Bayonne. So all are coming from the southeast of France. That's a problem of France to orient rugby there. But now, let's say if you see the Pro D2, you have some Vannes, which is in Brittany. You have Nevers. You have a new team from the north. So I believe in the future it will be national sports, except from the northeast, which is soccer for 100%. And
that's it. No changing there. All right, we got to go soon. But so I want to get this in. We have a mess going on in rugby in Europe with the Tier 2 nations, and we're calling it the Rugby Spanish Inquisition. Stephen, explain to the folks at home briefly, and then I want to get your opinions.
Yeah, so it's actually all about qualification for the next World Cup. Rugby Europe, which operates the European qualification process, has got itself into a big mess around two things. One is the refereeing of the Belgium-Spain game. Belgium won against the odds. Spain were eliminated, and there was a great deal of controversy because the referees and the staff were Romanian. And Romania was the team that stood to benefit from that decision. So that was the first issue. The second issue is you now have multiple questions about player eligibility. First Belgium, and now in particular Romania, where a player of, I believe, Tongan extraction had played in the Sevens series, and that therefore he's considered captured and not able to play for another team.
Right, I think one of the headlines was this Sevens player saves rugby. Right, because they now World Rugby's got an excuse.
Right, so, but now we're in a situation where you have issues with Spain, Romania, and Belgium.
And the Russians are the ones that are filing the complaint.
Right, so there are only two teams left standing, Germany and Russia. And whichever way you look at it, between the refereeing and the eligibility, this is a black eye for World Rugby. World Rugby have, I feel, just tried to pawn it off Rugby Europe. They have yet to come out with a statement on their decision on it, but it's not a good thing.
Yeah. So what do you think what's the French take on all this?
You know, the Romania team is a Latin team, so this is always there were support from French to Romania for the rugby union. Now the referee have been appointed by a government body for the game. So now, as he was appointed, decision was made. The players play the games, and that's all. So
do you think they should replay this game?
No.
No.
But I think what's interesting is
they can deduct points.
Here's something that didn't really make the headlines, but the Romanian coach, Lynn Howells, who's Welsh, and Rob Moffat, the assistant coach, who's Scottish, they quit. They quit 3-4 days ago. It wasn't a big story. If they're quitting, it kind of tells you.
You smell something.
Smell
funny,
something.
yeah.
Which is not good.
So you don't think they should? Do you think they should play replay the match?
Replay, no.
No replay, no replay. All
No
right,
replay.
but I read something else that said that they can deduct points from Romania for this, for the infraction of using the player, and if that's the case, then Spain gets in and Romania has to go into the playoff.
Yeah, I think they can't do anything about the referee, right? You cannot. That would be just completely injurious to the whole respect we have for officials. So you can't go on that one. We have to accept that result. You can talk about eligibility. You could say the Belgians had an ineligible player, which means Spain get a forfeit. The Romanians had an ineligible player against Russia and a couple of other teams, so they forfeit their points. That's probably the only logical step World Rugby can take at this stage.
And that would force Romania to go into the playoff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Not just be completely ineligible.
No,
As a
I think
punishment.
I think that it's one player.
But I mean, I don't get that. You're admitting that they've done something. If that's the case,
you're not admitting. You're not necessarily saying it was malicious or it was intentional. I mean, the laws around eligibility are somewhat opaque.
Yeah.
Being captured means, is it under 20s? Is it sevens? There's also an Olympic exemption in an Olympic year for sevens.
Yeah.
So the rules are not clear. I mean, they're clear, but there's 2 or 3 or 4 rules that apply.
All right, I'm sorry, fellas, but we have to go. We are out of time. And once again, I could talk rugby with you, my friend, and you, my friend, till the cows come home. But they have come home, and we have to get out of here. So on behalf of that, I'd like to thank mon ami, Pierre Arnald, and
Merci.
Stéphane Le Russe. Les lizards. Comment dit-on lizard in French?
Lézard.
Lézard. It's a cognate, right? Okay.
Of course it is.
All right, on that note, of course it is. On that note, on behalf of these beautiful men, Matt McCarthy for Rugby Wrap-Up at Fantasy Sports Network Studio 34, talking rugby in New York City, baby. Signing off.